The songs you know, the games you love, the band you've maybe heard of? Super Madness presents Fantasy Battles. This 8 MP3 or 1 disc CD set contains classic Final Fantasy battle songs, including and there's even a couple of bonus tracks like Super Madness Fantasy Battles, available now on Bandcamp. Remember those little commercials back in the day? Well, they actually had no clue that they were getting this little mock commercial. I'm friends with them and I'm a fan of theirs, so I just thought I'd share the love going into this video about NES music. You see, for me, music in Nintendo games has as much nostalgia as like the graphics do. You play the game, you look at the back of the box, you see the graphics, looks pretty fun, gameplay looks alright, you play the game, and the more you play it, that's when the music seeps into your head, and that music becomes such a part of the experience. The music can dictate whether you should take your time with a puzzle or hurry up with a puzzle. There's a lot of elements going on with music that you don't even really think about. And we all know the Castlevania soundtrack is great. We all love the Mega Man soundtracks, Batman. There's so many great soundtracks out there, but I want to showcase 5 not very well known, 5 a little bit, I don't want to call them hidden gems, but maybe like 5 underrated Nintendo soundtracks. I'm going to do that in this video. Starting with one I have talked about previously on this channel is 8 Eyes. Now, 8 Eyes starts with a level select. You can choose wherever you want to go, and each area has its own soundtrack and its own theme in its own kind of style. So when you go to a certain area, the music will kind of maybe sound a little bit like what the music may sound like for that area, in a way. It's not really the most well-known soundtrack for Nintendo games. You'll be whistling or humming a song later on, and you're like, how do I know that song? I've heard that from somewhere. What game is that from? It's from a game. What was I playing that played that song? It's gonna be one of those style of games. And the game itself is pretty fun. I mean, it's a total Castlevania ripoff, but I'm a huge fan of 8 Eyes. Thought I'd show it off here. Up next is Little Nemo the Dream Master. Now this one, can you call it an underrated soundtrack? I'm gonna include this because it's from Capcom and it's not Mega Man. Every single song in this game is absolutely amazing. The first stage of any Nintendo game is always going to dictate what type of soundtrack this game is going to have. And the very first song in Little Nemo the Dream Master, the first stage, absolutely amazing, absolutely wonderful. The water stages typically have a great song in any game you play, and this one is no exception. Love this one. The very majestic sounding of Nemo's house when you're all shrunk down and you're in this giant house. Love this one. Probably my favorite song in the entire soundtrack is the Cloud Ruins stage. Love this. And even kind of the haunting waltz sound of the Topsy-Turvy Land, it sounds a little unsettling at first, but then when you listen to it, it's like, oh, that's actually really nice. I like this. Little Nemo the Dream Master, great game, excellent soundtrack. I mean, I can't not talk about Faxanadu. Not only is Faxanadu one of my favorite NES games on all accounts, it's my favorite genre of game, that kind of 2D side-scrolling platformy with RPG elements, of which they only had a few for the Nintendo. But the music, man, come on. Something about the harmonies in this game just excite me, for lack of better terms. The very regal song when you meet the king. The somber sound of the church. A little bit more fast-paced, upbeat action part when you finally go out into the world to battle monsters. Faxanadu, one of my favorite games, as well as one of my favorite soundtracks. The next underrated NES soundtrack I want to talk about is the Magic of Scheherazade. Bet you didn't see this coming. The game is pretty cool, pretty decent. And the tunes are fun, they're catchy. The music changes when you get into a battle sequence. But I'm adding this game to the list if nothing more than it has my favorite password screen. If later on I have to do my top 5 favorite password selection screens, this one will probably be number 1. The Magic of Scheherazade is underrated in itself of a game, but the music just as well. I've got one more game I want to talk about. Can you guess what it is already? You probably already put it in the comments before you watch the entire video. We might be on the same page here. We'll find out after this. Today's special guest, the very talented, has the YouTube thing, streams regularly on Twitch. You can check her out. I'll leave a link in the description. Here is the pick from Hungry Goriya.
When it comes to games with great music, there's something to be said for tunes that are not only catchy and memorable, but also don't wear out their welcome. The NES is home to many long-winded adventures, and one such game with an absolutely amazing soundtrack to keep you company the entire time is Legacy of the Wizard. You make your way down into an enormous dungeon as 5 playable family members that each have their own unique abilities to tackle the obstacles in different areas. The music in this game is not only excellent, but also symbolic in ways you might not expect. Since each family member's skills are tailored for a specific area, and the music is different depending on which part you're in, each song in the soundtrack essentially belongs to one of them and can be thought of as their theme. An example of this is Zemin, the father character who can shift movable blocks with a glove item. His theme can be heard through what I'd consider one of the most treacherous areas of the labyrinth. This is a special bit of lore that brings an even deeper meaning to an already very heartfelt game.
Number 1 has to be Pictionary. I mean, first of all, this. No video game, especially one based on a board game from LJN, deserves to have the soundtrack that Pictionary has. The game is interesting enough. You play these mini games which will unveil parts of the drawing, and you have to guess what the drawing is. That's Pictionary on the NES. But the soundtrack. Now there's 2 different mini stage songs. These are the ones I hear the most anyway. I mean, this one's pretty cool. I really dig the other one that kind of has another one bites the dust feel. Pictionary for the NES, worth checking out just for the soundtrack. To go along with the soundtracks, I have some more underrated NES games in general, so make sure you check out that video. And I've also done these other top 5s as well. A little something for everyone, just something unique, something very kind of almost hyper-specific of something to do there. So check those out. Thank you for subscribing. Always new videos coming out all the time. It's all about that retro gaming nostalgia, keeping that alive, man. We'll see you real soon.